I'm Dave. And this is Plato's Cave, because it rhymes with Dave. No Mackie tonight. He's off doing something else. I'm filling in. When I say filling in, I'm filling my 50% of the show anyway, plus another 50%. And if you're into American politics, that could be described as 300% improvement. No, I'm kidding. I've just been watching a whole bunch of political things, and it does my head in. But we'll get to that a bit later on. Now, we're broadcasting for Revolution Radio on WZZR on the website called revolution.radio, where it's home to fresh, unfiltered ideas and conversations. Find those in the chat room where I am now. I'm going to ask you to get yourselves some merch, and good morning to you wherever you are on the eastern seaboard of the US. You know, that's what's going on. I don't know what show number this is. We lost count very long time ago, but it doesn't matter, because you can catch us on air, online, and anywhere on your smart device. Just grab an app to listen, or sit at home and listen on through a Grace Tabletop digital radio. And they owe us at least a radio each for all that advertising. Goodness me, I know we've done 650 shows in Shiny Side Out, and more, I think, now, because we're doing 2 a week now, and we're slowly catching up to that in Plato's Cave. So I'm going to say that I do respect the elders past, present and future of the place that I broadcast from in Australia, which happens to be dark and young country. And if Mackie were here, he would say Daruk country. But that doesn't matter. Now, moving on. Gonna say this is possibly the craziest, time ever in politics and the world. My goodness, not just in politics, but if I said political, stances around the planet, radical right wing wins. Where is it? France. That's an Australian accent if I've ever heard one. France, not France, Francais. But they won. But all the other parties banded together to make a left-leaning party that outrun them by number, which is really interesting. And the more parties you have, the more that you've got an opportunity to facilitate that. The more parties you have, and the more widespread the numbers are across all of them. If you had 5 parties and it was 19% each, and then 24% for one of them, you win. Sure, 2 of them band together, you don't win anymore. I think that opens up a conversation in favour, I suppose in some way, in favour of multiple parties, and not just having the big 2, not just having big left and big right, if you want to think of them that way. In Australia, the left and right aren't quite the same left and right as you have in the US. What we're seeing over here is the left in Australia was traditionally the People's Party, and the right was big business. But I think in the US we've seen a huge shift, so that the left in the US is with big business, and the right is kind of now with the people. Isn't that crazy? I don't care how you want to cut it. That's from an external point of view. That's what I see. And well, it's not. There's got to be some kind of position that everyone takes, and I've used this example many times. And if you have, let's just say, all of your friends, you're all in politics. Imagine this, right? And you just draw a line on the ground, like at a basketball side, the sideline, and you all stand on there. Somewhere in the middle is the center. Then no one's going to claim to be in the center. You're either going to be center left, center right. No one's going to be center. There is No one stands center, usually. But if you do, good for you. No position, and you could have 5 people on the line, or you could have 100, and there's not a single person on that line that will agree with anyone else on the line. So how is it that you and your friends outside of politics are able to make an informed decision about the person you want to vote for? How? Okay, so you've got a past with a party or a person. There's some kind of history. You have figured in your mind something about them personally, even. You might have a personal hatred for them, though you've never met, ever. You might have only seen them on television. Television isn't something that allows you to gain an entirety of someone's skill set. It's a portrayal of somebody. It's a character. They all portray a character. It's not like you're a fly on the wall at their, Sunday lunch, where they're all being really kind and happy and not talking politics or money or interest rates for that matter. And maybe they're not gaffing at all because there isn't. It's only coming from the top of your mind. It's not meant to be something you've had to have remembered, which is churned in like a blender with all the other things that you're meant to remember. I'm not making excuses for anyone at all. Like I said, this is some crazy times. Some crazy, crazy times. Now, there was a really funny meme getting about, and if you're listening to this live, in the chat room I've put a link to what I can show on YouTube. Something that I thought was pretty funny that came up. It was a meme that came out after Biden had mentioned his vice president was Trump. And I think it's funny. Someone photoshopped together Kamala Harris is on Trump's face, her face on his head, I suppose. And that's actually pretty funny. It's kind of scary, but it's funny at the same time. Don't hate the person that did it. It's very funny, and you can't hate on funny. You just can't. And humor is supposed to take you in places that, work with your morals to make something funny or not funny. A good comedian can make even something that you are strongly opposed, can make that funny. It can dance over the line of morality to discover a crowd's bias and then feed the crowd the jokes that will make it funny to them. Or you can just do a pre-rehearsed show and walk off, go, well, they didn't laugh tonight. And that's the end of that. So working the room is really important, knowing what the room is and who they are. So in a huge mass of the whole planet, you're going to offend people with any joke. It doesn't really matter what the joke is. It can be offensive on its own, or it can have some thought behind it, or it can be, egregious. That's probably the word I was looking for. It can be awful. So let's not. Anyway, I wanted to put that up there because that made me laugh when I saw it. And when I was talking about percentages and politicians and a blender full of numbers that they should remember when asked any question about anything, they should have the facts. And there's another one here I've got. It's a screen grab, and Biden's talking about, it was a CNN exclusive interview, but this is being fact checked by Sky News. I don't really care. That would be Fox based. And this was when Biden said he inherited 9% inflation, and it wasn't. But he's unmovable on that. He believes that's where it was, and he's done really well. And that's good. That's really good. Since the attempt on Trump's life, there's been a ton of conspiracy theories. The first one, before any details came out, this was while it was being live to air, which I was watching actually, and that was the immediate thought was that he had a little blood capsule. He leant over, smacked it against his ear, and when he stood up, that's what we saw. Because there wasn't any apparent damage. Not apparent, there was no real close-ups, there was no examination of it. It was so early in this whole thing. And then everyone clambered onto that like magnets onto a piece of metal. They went, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, I don't like Trump and it must be fake and it's all a conspiracy. And then, of course, they found out that the sniper was shot. Now there's people dead. Oh, it's still, look, it's all, just for show. Nothing's real, and they couldn't step down from it. It was very hard to convince people otherwise. It has made Trump stronger. There is no doubt at all that that's the case. And I'm okay with being able to talk about it. I don't get to vote. I'm not voting in the US federal election. Yeah. I don't have any reason to vote, even if I went there on holiday. I've got a holiday visa. I'm not voting. So who are voting? Who are the people that are going to be voting? Will this event make Trump untouchable? And who, and I'd love this in the chat room if anyone's in the chat room able to put something forward, who would be a likely candidate in the Democrats to be able to win against Trump now? Not prior. No, don't care about prior. Just now. Who would it be? Because it's kind of a concern, I think, if you were the Democrats. I made some jokes personally with my friends about the event, but from a comedic point of view about how that would be viewed by the Democrats. The fear that would have raised since it wasn't successful. I'm not saying who called for it to happen. Obviously the media is running with lone wolf, and that's fine. And there wasn't very much in the way of social media, apparently. Had a Discord account, some other videos have surfaced, that's pretty much it, not much. Right, done. So, an open and shut case is the way it appears, and that's really clean. Fantastic, nothing else to look up. Surely they'll comb everything. Is there any interview with anybody else that knew him? I haven't been able to see any of these unless they're on local media, local news. So, but it's surprising. It is really surprising to see that this is the way it is. Now, it raises a good question about whether or not the person, the shooter, was nudged. Because we know that term now. That's a term. I'm not saying they were. I'm not implying anything. But I think a good question to ask is, were they nudged? And that's it. Because the possibility is that anyone could be. I'm sure there is a Venn diagram showing, of all of the people in the world, that's the whole circle. Inside that circle there are many other circles with different personality types, and there's an overlapping amount in the middle, where if you can find someone that fits in that little group there, they're nudgeable. So I believe that there is a thing that's where you would lie. You would fall into that group, and you certainly would be identified. All of those Venn diagrams, all the circles in the Venn diagram, certainly would be able to be socially profiled. You'd be psychologically profiled. You'd be socially profiled. Your family, everything, whatever those circles would be, would mean whether you were going to be, if you were the FBI or CIA, or let's say you're working in Montauk. Just going to throw that out there. If you were doing any of those, who would be the most likely grouping of a candidate, and what that would what would that comprise? Because a single person doing that, ill-equipped, ill-trained, experts say that it could have been a better shot, would have been a better shot. Not sure, but everything that led to that not being successful is a failure. Plus, now I'm seeing in the media people questioning the Secret Service. I'm not questioning the Secret Service. People are questioning the Secret Service's employment criteria. I'm not doing any of that. I'm not doing a single thing except for raising questions outside of what everyone is talking about. Because I think that's the important thing. You can already see all these conversations going on. They'll come to their natural conclusions. That's why I ask the questions that aren't being asked. And I think we have to do that. We don't have to get answers. You're not going to probably find many answers. And don't assume anything. Really don't. And don't believe in something unless you're, let's say you're an entrepreneur and you're never going to give up. You're going to borrow all the money it takes to become successful. You believe in yourself. You believe in your idea, and that's good. And with all the money, you get there in the end. Fantastic. I'm with you all the way. And the hard yards of not eating, missing some bill payments, whatever it took you to become successful because you believed in yourself with this idea of this thing or whatever it is, and you did it. Fantastic. And now you own a string of tire servicing outlets across the USA. Good for you. That's kind of, I think, a joke from a TV show as well. So, and look, I'd be happy if I was being able to be described like that. But at the moment, I'm unemployed, and I wish I wasn't. And I'm trying my darnest to get work in my own profession without then going down a notch, and then maybe off into another profession, maybe just as an unskilled worker or something like that. I don't know. Or that's what's happening, and that's why I call out. And you'll hear this on my show, on any show I'm on, and I support universal basic income because it's more than the unemployment benefits, and it could very well save me from going under. And it's almost like a concerted effort to keep me unemployed, but it isn't. Anyway, so with all of those criteria, and that we know that nudging is a thing, and that you can, what was that TV show where the guy hypnotized somebody into doing something even against their own morals? I forget the name of the show, but that happened. And you can be programmed to do something that you don't want to ever do. Isn't that crazy? So if someone could nudge you or get you into a group of others and like-minded individuals, and even though there's no history of any social media accounts, maybe planning some ideas or telephone conversations. I don't know what they are. I don't know how you could do this. Apparently the assailant was a member of the Democrats, had donated $15, I think, US, to the Democrat Party, but after the election, then became a member of the Republican Party, probably to attend events, and then did this. So, yeah. Anyway, I didn't want to spend all of 1 hour on it. I thought it was interesting to bring up. It's kind of still a bit, the wound's a bit fresh, if you know what I mean. Why? Well, it's just top of my mind. That's all it is. Now, I had a friend of mine come around the other day and chat, and is quite anti-Trump. So with it, to add some balance, I thought it'd be interesting to bring this up. And this is about Project 2025. And it's just, the interesting component of how it was described to me by my friend was that this was an attack on everything we know, and it's to create a like a dystopian future and make us all fight against each other. If you could throw every negative connotation into a blender and turn it on, and this icky soup that came out, that was pretty much every single word salad item for not wanting it to go ahead. Every single one. It didn't matter what it was. So then, okay. So I'll read through it myself, I thought, and see if I could come up with anything that was going to make any sense. And kind of like, I suppose they shared their opinion with me, and I don't disrespect them for it. To get to where they were telling me about it, they must have had quite a long history in learning the detail in and or inherited opinion, because I want to be kind. I said and or learning what it was that was special to them and how that would strip away those things that were special to them. And they're built an animosity towards it. Pardon me, I usually get two. There's the other one. Okay, so when I read the actual, let me put it to, this is the brief, Building Now for Conservative Victory Through Policy, Personnel and Training. It isn't much different from what you would see as a business's mandate. How are they going to change? What was their business plan for the next 5 years? Pretty much the same. It isn't like reading the WEF's Great Reset, where you will own nothing and you'll be happy. But what do you mean I'll own nothing? I own things now. So how am I going to transition to owning nothing? Good question. It appears as though a world war would allow the banks to be able to have the government buy back from the banks in order to lend more money to the government, ironically, money for the war machine. And it's happened in every war. The loans don't disappear. Your bank loan won't disappear. You still have to pay it, and the interest rates can go up, but your ability to earn money will tank. There won't be any ability to earn money. And the money you might get, although extremely temporary, if you were to go to war, is actually very small compared to your mortgage. So you might get $100 a week, whatever it is, and some extra funds because you're going overseas into a conflict. I'm not sure what the wages are in the US, but certainly in Australia, there really aren't big wages. Yeah. So you couldn't afford a $3,000 per month mortgage if you were active in the military. So anyway, so if you were left at home and you can't be enlisted, then what are you going to be doing? You'll be in wartime manufacturing, no doubt. Existing industries will fall over. There aren't many industries that would remain in place and do a solid day's work. They'd be running on a shoestring. There'd be almost no one. Middle management would be gone. The end user staff would be depleted. The CEO and a couple of accounting people, maybe HR, there'd be nothing left. No marketing. Who's going to see it? Who's going to replace a billboard sign for any advertising, for any product at all during wartime? No one. The government, maybe. support your country or something like that, I can imagine. Are you in the next wave of recruits? Start exercising now. I can't imagine what there would be. But anyway, so the ability for the banks to be able to acquire your property from you is exactly in line with the WEFs. You'll own nothing. Because once you own nothing, or you've signed what you do own across, then you'll more than likely be in a position to receive universal basic income, and not before. They won't give it to you for free. You'll have to give away your stuff, and once you've done that, that's the end. I don't see that about Project 2025. I really don't. They just want to make it easier to administer and be able to reduce the amount of laws. If you have 3 laws because they're separated by either sex or nationality, you don't have it by male or female, you just replace that with person as a new law with the same wording, and you've just removed one. And if you also have an inclusion of someone being a specific nationality, then you just remove that because it doesn't matter anymore. Then it's just person. That's it. The person in these conditions has this, or those conditions must remain, or whatever that law happens to say, right? That's what I see as being the problem. If you can't make management of your environment easier, imagine being a CEO, right? You've started a company. It's fantastic. It's working. It's making profit. Everybody's happy. You've got for some reason, you have a really good work ethic within the business, and everyone loves everybody, and they're all helpful. Of course, that never happens. But just imagine that were the case. And something happens to you, and someone comes in. Now you can play the person coming in. So you built it up, and you're gone now, and someone comes in and just goes, "What? That's not right. All these rules it makes it too hard to do things inside the business." But you put them there because it made it work, and as it organically grew, they stayed in place. You never thought about changing the administration and the policies, but over time, you kind of outgrew it. But here you go, you've stepped into a role, and you've just discovered all this stuff, or like I've done in the past, discovered the absence of things. That's funny. So you go ahead and design it the way it should look. I think the first 4 years allowed Trump to see what was really wrong, and I think if he had another 4 years, he'd be able to fix those things that were wrong, possibly again in some cases. But a career politician doesn't see how wrong it all is. And that's the big, I'm really not advocating for either party. I'm just saying that this is what this Project 2025 appeared to be to me. And I'm not an expert. I need you read it for yourselves. So I found it on project2025.org. You'll find it there, and look, hate it or like it. It's up to you. But my friend was so. I'm going to be nice. My friend was so adamant that this was the worst thing that was going to ever happen. Also, if Trump were to get in, it would have been the worst thing that would have ever happened to the planet. And I don't necessarily have, like I said, the understanding of the history for my friend to have learnt all that about where it is. So I don't share their opinion. If you're in the chat room right now, tell me whether you share that same opinion, because I'm happy to change my mind on it. I really am, because I don't mind. I don't vote. I don't vote in your elections. And I hope that makes sense. I mean, it should. Do I have a producer on the station at the moment? Message me in the chat on our Skype call if I have a producer online at the moment. Because I have an audio track coming through of sound and an occasional click, and since it's only me on the station, it would have to be a producer. So do message me anyway, because you're not muted. Anywho, or if I had to make a joke, that's my CIA handler. Whoever you are, thanks for helping me. If you can get me a job, that'd be tremendous. Do that. Anyway, so what is next? I couldn't believe it though. I just crazy. It's such a crazy time. I found a tweet here, and this is an observation from. Well, I won't share the screen. How's that? I won't share the screen. I can get the person's identity out of it, and it doesn't appear on the screen anymore. I'll put it up, and it says. Actually, no, it does. But anyway, it says, I've seen people randomly in street corners holding up Trump signs today, and a ton of cars driving around, not just with Trump bumper stickers, but also Trump flags. I stopped at a stand selling Trump merchandise to pick up some new MAGA gear. The woman working at the stand said this has been one of her busiest days ever. Also, she said the main talking point almost everyone is she's talked to today is saying that they were afraid before to wear the Trump gear. Put a sign in their yard or on their car because they didn't want to deal with harassment or damage to their property by deranged libtards. That's what it says. I'm just reading the quote out. She said people are now saying they no longer have to fear. The consensus is if Trump can take a bullet for us, we can deal with property damage, harassment, etc. It's so on. Taking this for what it is. It's a tweet, sure. I understand. Will I ever name Twitter again? Or X back to Twitter? I don't know. There's been some debate. But look, this is someone's opinion, and hopefully that Vox Pop is accurate, where the person said that look, they're just not afraid anymore. I really appreciate that there was a lot of anti-MAGA sentiment, so much so that it did cause people to fear. It did divide the populace in the US apart into two groups. And that's frightening. You don't know how frightening that is. I mean, that's if you get a whole 50% on either side, that's rotten. To hear a politician say the words against MAGA by solidifying the idea that anyone who wears a MAGA hat is a terrorist. That is wrong. Can you see that? I hope that you can see what I mean, because that is basically Don't Look Up. The movie. Like Don't Look Up. But, because the other people said there's a meteor coming, don't look up. Just don't look at it. It's not real. It's a conspiracy. So if you look up, you'll just be falling into their trap. But if you look up, you'll actually see it. You actually do see it in real life. For a political party to call out that anyone wearing a MAGA hat is a terrorist is themselves inciting something. It's a hatred against the people who actually want to make America great again. But if you have a career politician who's lived within the rules, knows the rules, works the rules, does what they've got to do, but sadly is suffering some decline, ever increasing decline, and then this happens to the opponent that's just happened, and now they don't have fear. Wow. I don't know. There isn't a time in history that I can recall where this is the same. That's the problem. If you're watching the stock markets and you can see trends happening and you've watched it for 30 years and the trends do this, and every time the trends do this, you could do something and make some profit. Whatever that happens to be. It could be a short, or you could be buying it or shorting it. Doesn't matter. So whatever that happened to be, if you saw it often enough, you sort of get the idea. Elections in the past have been pretty cut and dry between the polling and the results, which states were the winners overall, which ones you had to get, which one it didn't matter whether you won it or not, but that's just the way that it is. It's looking rather red right now, and this is a long year still to go, 3 months, yeah, before it's going to come to a crunch. And the crunch is the election, nothing violent. What is going to happen? Who is going to be representing the Democrats? Is it still going to be Joe? Have we heard officially today? When do they have their caucus with their votes? If everyone's going to vote or not? I wonder, because who's going to win? Imagine the complexity around having Michelle Obama run in the Democrats against Trump. Off stage, imagine, it's a fictitious scenario, it's not real. You can imagine off stage you have Obama with a microphone and Michelle Obama's up there with an earpiece. You can't see it, it's there though, saying all the words that Michelle just has to repeat. I can imagine how torn people would be, because you would not only be voting for what is advertised as a female, African American female, former president's wife, advertised as such, and against Trump. I think that would be the only pairing that would kind of work. Because then wouldn't Obama be the first, is it a first lady, first man? Is that how do you say it? First husband? Not wife, first wife? I don't know. First lady. Whatever they decide to do, I think good luck. Because if they don't take Joe away from the leadership, or Harris for that matter, then they've just handed it to Trump. Trump's got the best win possibility if anyone is representing the Democrats other than Michelle Obama. That's how I see it. That's how some crazy polls have determined it. I even saw an image on being plastered on Fox News. I think it was one of those Fox programs, which showed that poll. And I had a little chuckle to myself, because I thought, that's extraordinarily unlikely to happen. Michelle had declined doing it. What about George Clooney? You know, the Democrat voters might like him. The swinging voters might like him. Ronald Reagan ran. He was a TV guy. Sure. TV and movies, same. You could do that. Everyone knows he does Nespresso, right? You have to cancel that sponsorship for his election. But, that doesn't matter, right? Do that. Who else? And I know it's preposterous to even suggest it, but that's not outside of the realms of possibility. Just is unnamed at the moment, right? Whoever it is. Yeah, Sergeant Miller is correct in the chat room there. Good morning to everyone. Comet, Zippy, Flippy, and Sergeant Miller. Yeah, good for you. You're right. The world is a stage, and it's a crazy performance right now. What would be the result? We're the actors. I thought I was a crisis actor, broadcasting out of a bunker beneath Denver Airport. Because someone told us that Australia doesn't exist, it's fake, and we're all crisis actors. Yeah, sure. But, I haven't seen a single cent from it. I'd do that. I would. And, what am I saying? I'd do anything at the moment. I'm skint. I have no money at all. And it's not right. My mortgage is so large that it does need some discussion. But you know what? Do you know what's hard? I've never had a time in my life where applying for a role, while I still had a job, applying for a role and I would get them. I would just get them. It doesn't, I'd apply for something I wanted and I would just get it. And that's what used to happen. Now I'm applying for roles and there's nothing. I'm not even in the top 3. I was politely interviewed by a company I used to work for, and another one turned me down immediately. I think it was the money I was after, because they don't pay anything like that. I didn't do that intentionally, just what I was used to. Having left them to go into real companies who pay real dollars for the roles, and they don't. They just slash it in half, and good luck with that. So, but realistically, for the other roles that I've applied for, it tells you there's 200 applicants for this role, and that's really rare. That's never happened. But this whole industry that I work in has been slashing roles everywhere. Literally everything has been slashed. It's like a fire sale. There's no one left to do the actual work. And they say, oh, this role, it says lead role. And you get there, you're the only person. There isn't a team. There's, principal and whatever the role, right? Also, how many of the standard role are there? Oh, there's none. It's just you. Why is it principal then? Because you're the only one. Oh, lead then? What about director of? Oh, it's just you still. Doesn't matter what you call it, still you. Only you. Okay, great. What do I get sick days? Probably shouldn't. I'm fabricating that conversation, didn't exist, but I make a joke that the situation we might be, the industry that I'm in might be the canary in the mine, and that the situation is going to get far worse before it gets any better. Everyone could talk about all the inflation numbers they want, but when the real items in people's, the shopping cart, are beyond them now, and you only do selective shopping, and there's no more, oh, that'd be, I might try some of those. When that's not going into the shopping cart, there's problems. Societal problems. This is societal problems, and we estimated this was going to happen when all the banks the central banks loaned to the governments, and they took out these huge loans from the central banks, and it waters down the actual cash, and this is a known thing. And every time you raise the debt ceiling, you're watering down your own currency because you're borrowing more money to fulfill the spend. You're addicted to spending. The governments are addicted to spending, and it's when it's not earned, it's spent like drunken sailors. When it's not earned. When you can just borrow it, who cares, right? I will never pay it back. It's impossible, see? And if we did pay it back, it would ruin the economy anyway. Because the value of the bonds would be worthless. And all the other persons who had invested in the bonds wouldn't be able to get rid of them. Isn't that what, no, you don't want that, right? Yeah, okay. So if you, let's pretend just for a minute, imagine a perfectly stable, perfectly working economy in Dave's country. It's me, but imagine if there was a country and it was working perfectly. The economy itself was cordial, and you borrow money and it's water that waters down the currency until there's almost no flavor in it. It would be undrinkable. It's worse than drinking pure water because there's something there, but it just makes it awful. That's what all of our countries have been doing to us. They've all been doing the same thing. Our country borrowed $1 trillion off the central bank. They just did some magic and said it won't affect the inflation because, the government will have it. They'll have it themselves. They won't spend it. They sat on it for a while. They didn't use much of it. A couple of things here and there. 250 million, but that's really nothing. Not even $1 billion. Yeah, just some things here and there, and then suddenly, we should buy all these submarines. We got all this money sitting here. Yeah, a lot of war talk going on. What if we always wanted, and suddenly, it's like The Simpsons where Burnsy was trying to give money away, and then you have about a trillion different ideas of people trying to get money from you. And that's what the lobbyists do. Anyway, the funny point to that is that it actually destroys your economy the more you borrow. It eventually ruins your bond price because at some point you'll have to collapse your currency and go again because you end up with too many zeros on your banknotes. There's not enough room or a font size that's still readable. Like Zimbabwe or whatever, right? They had massive, crazy inflation. So just redo your currency. But we're at a point where we can. We can redo the currency. We can do a central bank digital currency, CBDC. We can do those now that we've played with crypto for some time. And the WEF is supporting. That's their actual phrase. You've played with crypto for a while. Now we're going to do CBDCs. So we can do that, and there won't be any printed money anymore, and it'll just be digital currency. And once it's a digital currency, they can all be locked to the same world currency. They'll be locked to it. Therefore, at some point, the amount of money we're all given will be the same. Because all the goods will be the same. Everything will be the same. We won't own anything, so you won't have to pay anything off. And therefore, you could never, it becomes impossible to ever become wealthy, ever again. The possibility is gone. It forms a void so large between everybody, which is us, and the ultra wealthy, because they've gotten there and now they've dug the moat. The CBDC moat, the digital currency moat, the universal basic income moat, with the possibility of having money that has a timeout, like a voucher. It's only like you give someone one of those gift cards. It's only good for a year or less, 6 months or whatever. They could make it so that you've got, I'm only making this up and I'm not giving them any ideas, but this is what's already been proposed. Maybe a month. You get 6 weeks. We'll pay you universal basic income, but it'll only last for 6 months. and then it just whoosh, it's gone. So it's deposited into an account which has, you have an access card where you can use the money to buy something with, and if you don't use that money that's allocated within that amount of time, it can just go to zero. That's what can happen. They trialed that here during COVID by giving us vouchers to go to like a restaurant or to travel interstate, even though the restrictions hadn't kind of been lifted enough for us to do it. They wanted to encourage people to support local restaurants, local businesses. So they gave us, our state government gave us money to be able to do that. And I thought it was really nice until I started looking into, oh, hang on, was that an experiment? Like in England, where they cut Oxford into a pizza by saying you can't travel from one slice to another. If you live in this slice, you're restricted to travel into any other slice. You might be 100 meters or it might be just over your back fence. Not allowed to do that. They put up boundaries. They experimented, trying to make these 10 or 15 minute cities where you can go anywhere inside your zone, which is so dystopian. You can't believe how bad that is. Universal basic income is the same. It's just so dystopian. You can't imagine having disposable money that just disappears. It's got a time. It's got a lifespan before it vanishes. That's dystopian. I can't imagine anything that they want to really do to be able to govern us more effectively. Oh, actually, I can. The WEF grouped together the most wealthy companies and individuals to sign themselves into power as a ruling class to rule the rest of the planet's population. That's pretty dystopian. You can't make that up. That's what they did. That's what they've done. It's called a stakeholder economy, and it's all driven on their profits only. Because that's all they want. They just want more profit. They want it the way they want it. And that's where, let's say, a message that you want to put out has to go through a filter before it's shared with anybody else. And too many of negative ones of those, and you can get your universal basic income reduced. This is speculation. You can have the travel reduced or denied. So a way of controlling a population in this manner with those tools is to make everyone what we would call happy little Vegemites. That's an advertising slogan for Vegemite, by the way. And it meant you could only be happy if you ate the product. That's what they were going for with that. So using that terminology for this is still valid. Happy little Vegemites are happy little WEFs, with a single world government to eliminate all the differences between each other, to make us all the same, easily manageable, and the administration fantastic. There are only numbers in a system. You can't ruin an economy if you just type into someone's bank some numbers. Effort was what was being stored by fiat currency in our banking systems. Central banks ignored in this scenario. You have a bank and you earn money, but to be able to trade it with someone else's goods, you have fiat currency. Could be backed by something that's irrelevant in a scenario, and then you put it in a bank and they would invest it for you and make money for themselves and give you profit as well. You'd earn interest on it, and that's the way it worked. And you would store your effort as money that then you could buy someone else's goods. That's the most simplistic way of looking at how the money system works. Once central banks started to lend money and then to those banks, and the amount of money that was meant to be stored and reserved in the banks was only to stop a bank run, the whole thing starts to make sense. They did it for themselves, to protect themselves, and now we're living in a post fiat currency environment that's transitioning into a CDBC. It doesn't matter who's in government, they've all signed up to it. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to Plato's Cave with Dave only today. Glad I dragged everyone through the mud. That's where I am, knee deep in it. Take care, and we'll see you on Thursday, same time. It's for breakfast, 7 a.m. Eastern. And again on Sunday night with Shiny Side Out. But in the meantime,